Ever wonder why the price of that dream vacation can change, like overnight? Or why an imported car suddenly costs more or less? Well, the answer is hiding in the pretty wild and often chaotic world of the international monetary system. So let's dive into the story of how we've tried to bring order to the global economy. Just take a look at this. It's a chart of the world's major currencies. But honestly, it looks more like a roller coaster, doesn't it? And these ups and downs, these peaks and valleys, they're not just numbers on a screen. They have a huge impact on businesses, on governments, and yeah, even on your own wallet. So why are currencies on this crazy ride, and what does it all really mean? You want a perfect example? We only have to look at the euro. Not that long ago, it was riding high, a real symbol of European unity. Then, the global credit crisis hit and boom, it exposed these massive national debts. This quote just nails it. The euro's value became a mirror, reflecting all the economic drama playing out across the continent. And this isn't a one-off story. It happens over and over again with currencies all around the world. Okay, so before we jump into all the history and the big, grand theories, let's start with the absolute basics. Why should you even care about exchange rates in the first place? This breaks it down perfectly. Think of it like two sides of the same coin. When a country's currency is weak, its exports suddenly become cheaper and way more attractive to the rest of the world. That's great for domestic producers, but it means everything you want to import gets more expensive. On the flip side, a strong currency gives you, the consumer, a lot more buying power for foreign goods, but it can make it really tough for your own country's businesses to sell their stuff abroad. It is a constant balancing act. Now, for businesses trying to operate globally, that roller coaster we just saw is a total nightmare. I mean, can you imagine trying to make a financial plan or invest in a new factory or even just guess next quarter's profits when the value of your money is swinging all over the place? So here's the key. Businesses don't just want a strong or weak currency. More than anything, they just want things to be predictable. Okay, so if currency values are so important, what actually decides what they are? Let's take a look at the fundamental forces. You could call them the rules of the game that are supposed to be running the system. You know, it all starts with this really simple but powerful idea, the law of one price. The idea is that in a perfect world, an identical product, let's say a brand new smartphone, should cost the exact same amount everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're in Tokyo, Toronto, or Berlin. Once you convert the price to a single currency, like the US dollar, it should be the same. This concept is like the theoretical anchor for what exchange rates should be. And here's a really fun way to see this theory in action. The Big Mac Index. Seriously, since a Big Mac is pretty much the same burger everywhere, The Economist magazine uses its price to see if currencies are where they should be. So according to this, a Big Mac in Norway costs almost double what it does in the US. That suggests Norway's currency is overvalued. But in China, it's the total opposite, which suggests the yuan is undervalued. It's a simple idea, but it's a surprisingly effective gut check on whether a currency's valuation makes any sense. So how do we go from just one burger to an entire economy? Well, that's where the theory of purchasing power parity, or PPP, comes in. It basically expands the law of one price from just one product to a whole basket of goods. The theory says that exchange rates should naturally shift over time so that your money can buy the same amount of stuff, that same basket of goods, in any country you go to. Of course, the real world is a lot messier than just PPP. If a country has high inflation, that eats away at the value of its currency. High interest rates? Well, that can attract foreign investment, which actually strengthens the currency. And then sometimes it's just about what people believe, what investors and traders think is going to happen. If they lose confidence in an economy, they'll dump its currency and the value will tank, no matter what the Big Mac Index says. With all this volatility, it's really no surprise that for centuries we've been on this quest for stability. Let's look at the huge historical attempts to tame all this chaos and basically fix the system in place. This timeline shows the two great eras of trying to create order. First, you had the gold standard, where currencies were literally as good as gold. Their value was fixed to a specific amount of it. This actually worked for a very long time, but it just crumbled under the economic pressure of the world wars. Then, in 1944, leaders met at Bretton Woods. They created a new system, pegging all the major currencies to the US dollar, which in turn was convertible to gold. This kicked off an era of incredible stability and growth. So, what was so great about these fixed systems? Well, on one hand, they brought order. They massively reduced risk, they kept inflation in check, and they even helped balance out trade deficits almost automatically.
But all that order came with a price: rigidity. Think of it like a train on a fixed track. It's predictable, sure, but it can't swerve to avoid a crisis. Nations couldn't adjust their own monetary policy to fight off a recession, which made the whole system pretty brittle.
And that right there leads us to the crucial question. If these systems gave everyone the predictability they wanted so badly, what went wrong? Why did both of these huge experiments in global economic order end up failing? The collapse of that Bretton Woods system back in the early 70s, that kicked off the modern era. An era defined not by fixed train tracks, but by the open and often very stormy seas of floating currencies. You see, when the US cut the dollar as tight to gold, it wasn't just a small policy change. It was the end of an entire philosophy of how the world's economies should work together. The age of predictability was officially over. And this is what can happen when there's no anchor. A $100 trillion bill, this banknote from Zimbabwe, is what hyperinflation looks like. It's when a government just prints money like there's no tomorrow, and the currency's value just evaporates into thin air. At one point, this note was worth less than a single US dollar. It's a truly terrifying look at what happens when monetary stability completely collapses. So where does that leave us today? We live in what's called a managed float system, which was made official by the Jamaica Agreement back in '76. Basically, most currencies float freely, and their values are set by the market. But, and this is a big but, governments and their central banks often manage that float. They'll buy or sell currencies to stop things from getting too crazy. It's a hybrid system, kind of a compromise between total chaos and rigid order. Now, this managed system has given us a lot of flexibility, but it definitely has not gotten rid of the storms. Let's look at the crises of this modern era and what it all means for what's coming next. The last few decades have just been slammed by a series of painful financial crises. They often start with a currency collapse in one country and then spread through the whole system like a virus. When the Thai baht collapsed in 1997, it set off a domino effect across all of Asia. When Greece's debt problems came to light, it threatened the entire Eurozone. This list isn't just a history lesson. It's a repeating pattern in our super-connected world, where a problem in one corner can create massive waves everywhere else. So how on earth do businesses deal with this? Well, let's open up the manager's playbook. Let's say the US dollar is strong. An American company might find it's way cheaper to get car parts from Germany. But when the dollar is weak, that same company will probably switch to domestic suppliers and then push its now cheaper cars to international markets. To survive in today's economy, you have to be able to play both offense and defense. So what a journey, right? We've gone from the rigid, predictable order of the gold standard to the, let's call it, managed chaos of today. Our monetary system is a living, breathing thing. It's constantly changing and reacting. And that leaves us with a final and pretty unsettling question to think about. In a world of floating currencies and economies that are all tangled up together, are we always just one step away from the next global crisis?